share what you've learned over 20 years as a entrepreneur with our audience.
Yeah, so I'll start out at first kind of telling you the origin story. 44 years of age now. When I first got started with the company, like a lot of us, I think that we start out with a lot of goals and ambitions and hunger. Mine was when I got the news that my daughter was being born. And hey, hold on a second. Brandon. Hey, Brandon. All right, cool. Yeah, the screen went away.
Oh yeah, I did that. I did that on my
Yeah,
end.
yeah,
So my
yeah.
video editor is going to take clips of what you share and turn it into
Hmm.
Instagram Reels and
Okay.
Facebook Reels and stuff like that. So I'm
Hmm.
just making the screen bigger so it looks good for them. But I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah. So when I got started in the business, it was mainly because of knowing I was going to become a father. Was getting married, didn't want to just have a normal job. I was already at top pay within the chosen field I went into, which was an industrial electrician. Got an associate's degree. Uh, got a job at the place that I wanted to get a job at. Was within top pay within 6 months, and realized I was at a ceiling. And there was this one day when this old guy, we called him Pops. He was about 80 or 90 years old. And he had a full back brace, plastic hard shell. He would knock on it, had straps all the way around it, and would literally walk dragging his feet, into the manufacturing plant. And he looked at me one day and he asked me, why was I there? And I didn't have an answer. I said, well, I'm here to work. He said, yeah, but you've got your whole life ahead of you. You're already leading the second shift. You've only been here 6 months, and I'm pretty sure you're at top pay. There is no more room for growth here. And I asked him in return, I'm like, well, I mean, you've been here how many years? And he told me a ridiculous amount of years. I think like 50 years or something like that. And I said, well, why are you still here? He said, I have no other choices. Have no other options. This is all I know. And he said, the thing that stuck with me was, he said, I feel like if I do quit and I leave from here, I'm going to die. And that kind of hit me. And I'm like, wow, that sat with me for a little while. And I knew I was becoming a father, was getting married. And my family was in construction, come from an area where there's a lot of trades, a lot of blue collars. We framed custom homes in high school. Instead of staying out of trouble, I was on a job site, picking up trash, toting lumber, doing whatever it was that my brother told me to do. And there was one day when I saw uh, the GC pulled up and white pickup truck, as we all pretty much know. We drive up in. He got out for a few minutes, and he went to where my brother was at. They spoke a little bit. I saw my brother straighten up, posture up, and try to talk proper. And never seen him really do that. So early on, I was probably like maybe 11, 12 at the time. And when the GC left, he got out, from what I can remember, just for a few minutes, looked at the plans. They nodded, pointed a few times, shook hands. He got back in his truck and he left. And I noticed while there too, he left his truck on because I could see the water dripping underneath up underneath his truck. And it was extremely hot, and I didn't like the heat. And I asked him, I said, well, who is that guy? He said, that's my boss. I'm like, your boss? But, I thought you were the boss. He's like, well, I am. I'm the framer. We frame the homes, but I work for him. He's the GC. I'm like, what is the GC? He's the general contractor. And I'm like, wait, let me get this right. This guy pulls up to the job site, and a nice pickup truck gets out, leaves the truck running with the air condition on, gets out. You come to where he's at. You bring him the plans, hand him the plans. He pulls out the plans, looks over and points and tells you some things to do, and then hands you the plan back. And then he gets in his truck and leaves. And my brother said, yep. And he's pretty much, he's like, he rides around to the job site, just gets out and look at them, and we do all the work. So the seed was planted for me all those years ago, even though I didn't recognize it at the time. When I was working as the electrician in the manufacturing plant, and Pops told me that, I remember thinking back to that time, like, well, hey, maybe I'll go talk to my brother and see, because I'd already heard too, you could take the exam, pass a GC exam, and then you could become a general contractor. I was thinking about studying for my electrical license because I took to the electrical more than any other trade in what I started out for. But I realized there was a ceiling there too, and at the time I think it was maybe around 40 or 50K. And I didn't want a ceiling. That was the key thing with me. I didn't want to have a ceiling at all. I didn't like that feeling. And it kind of slapped me in the face really quickly. I didn't anticipate that, but I knew whatever I was going to do, I wanted to have almost unlimited upward potential. And so I started talking to my brother and asking him about, that role that his boss fulfilled as a GC. And we talked, and it was like, hey, you go take the exam. You're smart. You can pass it. You got plenty of book sense, is what he told me coming up. He's like, and I'll frame the homes, and then such and such will do the trim and the boxing and the siding and the interior trim and the masonry. And I did that. I passed the exam, and I flunked the first time. I studied for a while and then got overwhelmed because I didn't really know what I was supposed to be studying for. So I just made a decision to go take the exam and see what would happen. Of course, I failed, but I learned a lot. And what I learned is just to take action and figure it out as you go. It was one of the first important lessons I ever learned, because as soon as I realized I failed, I was excited to fail because at least I'd made progress. And after I had left from taking the exam, I went out to my vehicle and immediately started writing down everything that I could remember, every question that I could remember. And I knew there was only like 80 some questions in the exam. And I kept a notebook handy. And over the course of that week or the 2 weeks after the exam, I was steady taking notes on things that I could remember when I remembered them, until I got to a point where I had over like 120 questions that I had written down, but there was only like 80 questions that I had on the exam. So I knew that, okay, wait a minute, I'm making up stuff now. And I literally just decided to just study that. And I studied it for another couple of weeks and went back and took the exam and passed it within 30 minutes. I looked up and got the same exact exam. It don't happen like that nowadays. So I was very blessed. And I knew when I got it, I had one of the guys tell me, hey, that's a golden ticket that you have there. And no matter what you do, don't ever, let your license lapse. Don't ever, don't ever let them lapse, because if you do, you'll have to come back and redo all this again. And so that's kind of like the origin story that how I became a general contractor. And from there, I knew at the time I was 22 years of age, I think, and looked extremely young at the time, and knew that I was going to have a hard time getting into the industry and breaking into the industry due to me being young, me being green, had license, but in all honesty, I didn't know anything about the construction industry and was relying heavily upon my family at the time to do their scopes of work. But I wanted to learn everything from the ground up. So after getting licensed, I decided that I would learn how to read blueprints. I went to another GC that was one of my first mentors. He'd been a GC for years, had a barn full of old plans. And I asked if I could, have some of the plans that he's not using. I wanted to learn how to read the plans. And he told me, sure. I went and got maybe 4 or 5 sets of plans. And I started looking over them, started studying them. And from there, I wanted to learn how to draw the plans. I learned how to read them by looking at the plans, reading them. And I did a lot of self-studying. And I eventually got my hands on, at the time, I couldn't afford the software. So um, a school that I knew, someone that was over a school, implemented SoftPlan, was a software that I started learning how to draw the plans. So got my hands on an educational version of the software, read the plan, study at night. I just basically became obsessed. When I say that, I don't say that lightly. Like, yeah, I was obsessed with reading, with everything about becoming successful in that lane. I come up as a foster kid, didn't have my mom or my dad in my corner. And so, like a lot of people probably who are in that same situation, we have a different kind of hunger. And mine was to make sure that now that I was becoming a father, that my kids, my family never had to face the struggles that I had to face. And I looked at this as my way of being able to change the path that I was on as a kid and make sure my kids never face the same things that I faced. And I just made a plan from the very beginning. And that plan was simple: get the GC license, learn how to read the plans, learn how to draw the plans, go work for a designer to draw plans and make money, getting paid while I learn, I guess you could say. And so my plan, it worked out almost exactly to the T on how I planned it. I worked for that designer for maybe 6 months to a year. I let him know up front when I went to his office, told him that I was going to start my own design build business and that I needed to print out a set of plans. The reason why I went to his office, I drew my first project was a barn with the living quarters up top. and designed it for the couple, but didn't think far enough ahead to figure out where I was going to print the plans when I got finished with them. And so when I got finished with them, I started looking for a place to print them, and I found a local designer. That's how I got introduced to him. And when I went there to print out the set of plans, he asked me, where did I learn how to draw? And I told him my story about teaching myself how to draw. And he was like, are you looking for a job? I said, how much is it paying? He told me, I'll pay you so much per sheet, and landed my job as my first job as a designer from there. And with the agreement that I would work with him and help him put out the work that he has, as long as I still can learn. But I told him I'd probably only do it for maybe a year or two until I got my first break, because I was looking to start my own design build business. And he kind of laughed and patted me on the shoulder and pulled out the seat and said, well, hey, here's these 3 plans. How soon can you get them done? And the situation that happened there, that kind of also, and I've noticed in my journey, everything happens for a reason. And he had an opportunity to recommend me to someone that was looking to build, which was part of our agreement. It's like, when I find someone that's not already got a builder, I'll make sure to recommend you. Well, I saw that didn't happen. And so around the same time I got my big break, a real estate agent who knew me from when I was a little boy, knew my story, approached me with my first design build client, and I agreed to draw the plans for free. Their custom plans is about a $450,000 home at the time, and I only charged them 10 grand to get started. And that's how I landed my first deal. And I knew that if I could do that, a lot of people tried to talk me out of it and say, hey, that's too large of a project for you to start out on the first one. Maybe you should just do a bathroom remodel or something. But I knew that either I was going to succeed or that I was going to fail really fast. But either way, I wanted to find out. And this was the ideal way to find out. Also, because I knew that if I did this, nobody would be able to tell me that I didn't have what it takes to be a general contractor, to be a custom home builder, to be a design build company eventually. And we took on the job, we knocked it out of the park, and that was the start to building this company that you see today.
So you were 23 years old?
Yes, sir.
And then how I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in this couple. How in the world did this couple think it was a good idea to, hire a 23-year-old kid? And you said you looked young. Like, were they family, or how did you convince him to?
The real estate agent was, she knew me. She knew me from when I was a little boy, but it's like anything else. Everybody's got this sign hanging above their head, right? And I didn't know it at the time, but knowing it now, it was the same thing. What's in it for me, right? And what was in it for the real estate agent and for the client then was, they knew that I was green, but they knew also that I had to at least know how to draw the plans, because I was willing to draw them for free and they didn't have to pay for the plan. So they were saving probably $2 per square foot at the time on the plans. And they're, that's maybe like 8 to 10 grand right out of the gate by not having to pay the price for the plans and agreeing to have a licensed GC. Because anytime you're doing a loan, you have to have a licensed GC on record to oversee the job. So it checked all the boxes, I guess you could say, for them. And they're looking at it, and the risk versus reward leaned heavily on the side of like, okay, well, we're going to save all this money. But who are your subcontractors? Who's going to do the framing? Who's going to do the masonry? Who's going to do the roofing? And once they saw that I was well insulated with the trades, with the crafts of people that had, 20, 30 years of experience on the team, I think they saw that, man, we're probably not going to find this opportunity with anybody else and save 40, 50, 60, $80,000 on our build. And I think that's the reason why they decided to take the chance with me.
Got it. So after that initial success, what elaborated, the months after that? How did you get your second customer?
Advertising. While doing that job, I'm always been a creative thinker, and I think outside the box. I've never thought like the traditional minded builder or GC. I don't think, from the very beginning. Again, I was young, always been at the forefront of technology. And I had this vision of like doing this house and putting a big old billboard out front and laminating the plans for the home that showed the front, left, right, rear elevations, the bird's eye view of the elevation. Got the owner's permission to put that up, out front of their job site, showing the layout of the floor plan. and put it out by the road. And this neighborhood was getting a lot of traffic. We was the first custom home in that brand new neighborhood, so I knew it would get a lot of traffic. And that's what led to the second job that I've got. That was a 4,000 square foot home. So I literally went from my first job being something that a lot of people told me that I shouldn't take on because of it being right at a $500,000 project right out of the gate, and then went to my very next project, which was a 4,500 square foot home, which ended up being, even more money. Now, they saw my design is what captured their eye. They hadn't seen that with any other builder. And they see me building that home that I was building and called me up, set up an interview. And at the time, I was meeting people at their homes. And so I went and met this particular client in their home. And when I went in to meet with them and to show them my estimate, my takeoff, that's another thing. I learned how to do on-screen takeoffs at the time as well, along when I was teaching myself still about designing, still about, estimating. I found a software even back then that would allow me to trace the blueprints and figure up quantities and things of that nature. And at the time I had it was a HP tablet PC, the one that kind of spins around and folds, and had the pen on it even back then. So when I walked into the second client's home, he opened the door and I said, "Yes, sir, I'm Ralpheal Locklear." And he let me in. And then when I went inside his home, he was still at the door, like open the door, looking out the door. And he's like, "Boy, where's your daddy at?" He's like, you too young to be coming here trying to build my house and spend all this money with you. You look like a baby. And his wife kind of helped me out. And I said, "Troy, boy, leave that boy alone, And so I started showing him what I had prepared for them, which was a takeoff of their project. And, he had dozens of questions, well, hey, did you account for my turnaround, my fountain in the center of my roundabout for my concrete entry? Did you figure all brick? We wanted the scratch joint for the black mortar. Did you factor that in? And we literally went through his takeoff for probably about an hour. And I started repeating myself, answering the same questions that he'd already asked me. And me being so youthful, I was kind of getting a little frustrated. You know what I mean? I was like, "Yes, sir. Here's this number. Here's that number." And when he asked me one of the questions about the third time, I remember looking, kind of at him a little bit perturbed or frustrated. And I circled a number. He said, "Well, how much is this costing? How much is that costing? And, well, how much are you making off that? And then how much are you making off this?" And I remember, because it was a moment where we all just stopped and laughed. And I took the highlighter and I circled my number that I had on it. I remember what it was. It was $44,000. And I said, "You see that number right here?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "All that's mine." and he like looked at me with the laughing, and his wife was sitting kind of in the kitchen, and she said, "Troy, leave that boy alone and sign the paperwork." And that's how I landed my second deal, and from there, Troy, he's with me still, to this day. He does some of the BD development for me. So we designed we built his home back in the day. He raised his family, his kids in it. His mother-in-law, we built her own suite onto the home. Got to know him and his family. He was the best man in my wedding, and been one of my best friends, since then. And I tell this whenever I tell this story, as he set me up for the okie doke, because I thought that's the way that things would go, as far as building that type of relationship. But I found out the hard way that's rare, to find those types of lasting relationships with clients, especially to that extent. But he also taught me and showed me early on why I do what I do, and which is the impossible. It's hard to. I tell people one of the most brutal businesses there is custom home design building. And the reason why is because the way we've done business and the system that we follow, we've developed our own process, but you have to cross every T and you have to dot every I. And even when you can show and prove that you're right, we video document everything. All of our meetings, just like how we're recording this, when we meet clients, everything's recorded on site, off site. We use all kinds of technologies nowadays to do those recordings. However, you can do all that and have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed. But with custom homes, because you're dealing with people and their largest investments, sometimes they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know exactly what the end result's going to look like. And we can do exactly what we say we were going to do on contract, by the signed plans, and get 70, 80% done. And then the owners come in and see the finished product, and it's not what they had in mind, or it's not what they had envisioned, even though it's what's on the plans and what we've agreed to and what they've picked. And you get that look or that reaction where they're not totally happy. And, if you're someone who does this type of business for the sake of, making people's dreams come true, and of course we're in it to make money. However, for someone like me, I get just as much, probably even more of a reward, knowing that we're building someone's legacy for them, and knowing that we're doing it at the highest level, and that they're happy, not just at the beginning, but also in the middle. And in the end, hopefully they're even happier with us when it's all said and done. And sometimes, no matter what you do, you can't meet that expectation. We're literally in a business to where you can do 99 things almost perfectly. I don't think anything can be done perfect, but you miss the one thing, and it's that only one thing that people focuses on. And it can be something that you and I see as so insignificant if we don't ask the right questions. You see, this business has taught me over 21 years, I'm not in the construction business. I thought I was in the construction business. And I thought it's why, but we're not. We're in the people business, especially when we're doing custom homes, which requires us to get good at listening, communication, persuasion, reading in between the lines. Sometimes I'm wearing the hat of a marriage counselor. Sometimes I'm somewhat I have to be a psychic to kind of try to get an idea of what's going to happen next, and being able to predict the next 2 or 3 moves ahead. And with custom homes, I always tell people that it's the best teacher, though. If you want to get a high level skill set across the board, become a custom home designer and builder. And if you're going to succeed and thrive in this industry, you'll have to check all those boxes, or you won't survive.
What's been your favorite custom home you built, or favorite project, favorite customer? Is there a success story where you're talking about that satisfaction? You look back and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's the best we got.
Mhm. It's hard to say which one's the best. I've got some that comes up in mind, top
Favorite.
of mind first. My favorite would probably be, I'd probably say the Crosby project. All of our projects we name, we call them by our clients' name, being their custom homes. And the reason why I would say that's my favorite is not, some people that know it would say, oh yeah, of course it's your favorite. It was the largest custom home that you did. But it wasn't necessarily that. It was the fact that I had preconceived notions on what that experience would probably be like, and it ended up not being so, and it ended up being better than what I thought. I went into this particular project. I like challenges. I like challenging myself, and I like doing what most people say is impossible. When I see the word impossible, I see I'm possible. And so I always embrace a challenge. And this one scared me. It scared me a lot, because of the size at the time. It was I think around 10 or 11,000 square foot home. Um, in today's value, that home's probably at least a $4 million home, I would say. Um, and it was a very unique design. It was weirdly shaped. We had to redesign it. But the biggest thing was, this client was a high profile client. It was a local attorney. And, so that was something like, well, man, he's an attorney. And my mindset at the time was thinking that maybe that type of client would be really challenging, really demanding, maybe somewhat difficult to work with, beyond the fact of the project already had its difficulties. We were building on such a tight lot with such a big home. Um, we had to be extremely precise, because if we was off just a little bit, there was no room for error, essentially, hardly at all. And it was a very large project. And what I found out during the design and the construction part of this project was that it was my easiest project. I've built and designed custom homes that's 1,800 square feet, 1,500 square feet. And we did this one that was 11,000 or so square feet with garages and unheated space. And I remember going through the middle of it, I was at so much peace during that build. It was really smooth. We had a process that the client honored before, during, and after. They trusted us with our process. And it was just a smooth, simple build. And when I first started, I thought the opposite. And I found that in this industry, typically your larger projects are easier than the smaller projects. At least that's been my experience. And the reason why that was the favorite, of course, it was my largest project. It helped reframe what's possible, and it helped change the way I viewed what I was doing, and helped me not be so reluctant or afraid to go after bigger projects. Because at first I was thinking bigger means more risk, more challenging, more difficulties. But for me, I started finding out that that often is the opposite when you have a good process. And I had to learn at that point in time who is our ideal clients, who is not ideal clients, why, what does that customer avatar look like, and that job started opening up those ideas and those perceptions for me to figure out.
That's awesome. And I agree 100%. Sometimes the bigger the client, the bigger the pay, the easier it is. It's
Hmm.
absolutely wild. So I what you just said, I can relate to. The some of the biggest customers I had, they was the easiest, and
Yep.
it was a win-win. Well, you mentioned back as a 22, 23-year-old kid, um, you understood the importance of advertising, but that was 2004, that was 2005. Now we're in 2025, headed into 2026, where the world of marketing and advertising is completely different. What is landing you your best customers this day and age? What are you doing for your marketing that's working, 20 years later?
Um, when we first got started, it's always been video. We were the first to market with that. Even back then, I was doing videos documenting kind of our journey. Not as much, not as often, but that's what's made our business what it is today locally. And like today, we still leverage that, in the form of, even if it's just short content, sometimes long form content, showing people different things behind the scenes of a build, educating clients on different processes. Um, but mostly it's always been video content. A lot of people used to see me on the job site. There was a saying at one point in time, somebody said something along the lines of, all you do is make video content when I see you on the job sites. And, back in the day, it was something that was laughed at. It was ridiculed. Our branding is a cartoon mascot, which, that was something first we did also, wasn't a thing. And now you see a lot of folks, at least in our local market, with the wraps like we have with different cartoons, different, things of that nature. So we kind of set the trend in our industry when it came to that. And video has been the thing that's always moved the needle for us. We are able to now not have to necessarily compete on price when people do come into our funnel and opt in or raise their hand that they're interested in designing and building. They're already pre-sold on our company. They already know who we are, what we're about. They know my story. They know the story of this company. They know what makes us different, better, and more unique than anyone else. And they also know that we're not the cheapest. They're not coming to us looking for a cheap price. They're coming to us because they want certainty, they want peace of mind, and they want to know that when this contractor, when Southeastern is doing the job, they know that it's going to be done right. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Custom homes is at times custom headaches. We're only building this particular project this particular way on this lot one time. And there's going to be challenges and things that we're not going to get perfect. And I just tell people, if we had the luxury and ability to go out and build that same project 2 times, then of course we would be able to pretty much master it, and especially if we was able to do it 3 times. But we are never really afforded that luxury because of custom homes. Now we do also do commercial developments, commercial buildings. We do government contracts now, but it all started with video content. Even back then, that's what's always worked for us.
Okay. I'm curious about when people call your business. Are you using any softwares or AI or anything to handle? Because your team's out busy, you're working.
Mhm.
How are you handling the phone calls?
So we're using, first and foremost, callrail.com, which is an absolute great tool for us. It allows me to put unique tracking numbers on basically anything and everything. Our vehicle wraps has its own unique phone number. Our website has its own unique numbers. We can put unique numbers on any video content we put out. And what that allows us to do is to log in and see what is producing results as far as bringing in calls. And then when the calls come in, it can be routed to any number of people on our team. We have an app. It comes with an app, so we don't have to be stuck by a dedicated landline. We can have our mobile devices and take those calls anywhere. It allows us to sound extremely professional. Even no matter how small that you are, you can create call flows, call greetings. We customize our own with my voice, with background music, and we basically made our own IP, internal phone. We made our own internal system for handling those calls, and it just made us look like a much bigger company starting out than what we actually were. And now we are looking to integrate AI into that when we find the right tool. We've tried out a couple, but we haven't fully settled on which tool that we're going to actually integrate. So now we're still handling those internally with our live team. But we have tried out some that sound very convincing, sound almost human-like, to where it was indistinguishable between what AI sounds like and what a real person would sound like. But it takes a lot of time to program, to upload the right documents, the knowledge base, and all of that. But it's shown very promising. We've tried some that did a very good job initially at handling calls, answering questions. However, it was a little bit too much of a lift on the back end to fully integrate. So we're on the look now for a better, more seamless tool that we can integrate without it being such a heavy lift with the programming.
You mentioned wrapping the vehicles, using CallRail. Are there any other marketing strategies that you think are really setting you apart?
YouTube ads, Facebook ads, all of them, video ads, by the way, locally within our market, targeting, like 30 or 45-mile radius. And we have our list of callers that we can export from CallRail from people that has called us over the years. You can take that, download it, and upload it into places like Facebook and things like that, and create what's called lookalike audiences if you want. Get in front of people who look like your target customers, target people who's already called your office. We've tried Google search ads and all that. That kind of works as well locally. But we go all in on our social media content with video. We have a lot of people wanting to sell us radio ads. We've tried things like that. But the biggest bang for buck is always been video for us, because people watch that, they connect with you. If your story and your what you're recording resonates with them, then they get to know you, and we're advertising locally, right? So the idea is that they're not ready to build now. Most people might not be ready to build if they're ever going to build, but when they are, we want to be top of mind. And the best way to top of mind is creating content that educates them, makes them laugh. Also is, we try to add some humor in it, and just also have fun with it. I mean, we're out there doing all this stuff anyway. Why not just pick up a camera and record and show people what you're doing and why you're doing it? And I think something that also, that works really well is being your true self. You are who you say you are. When they see us on the job site and they see us shining lights down a wall, that before we allow the painters to say that we're done, or the sheetrock guys, we're making sure that we're doing our level 4, level 5 finishing, and we're showing people how to do it. I know some builders don't like that. I've had some people call me locally, like, Ralph, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you putting that out there? Because now clients are starting to ask that other builders do that. And that's not the standard, and there's a lot of people that build homes, spec homes, semi-custom. There's not very many truly custom home builders, but I show exactly what we do. My goal is I want to educate everybody on what right looks like, and what quality looks like. Most people don't know what that looks like. So we do our very best to try to make them aware of what that is.
And what platforms do you find have the most success? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? What's kind of your priorities with the videos? Where are you publishing them, uploading them?
Yes, primarily Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Surprisingly, I didn't think that TikTok would generate much leads, just because of most people's just there, just endlessly scrolling, but it's generated leads of people wanting to actually build homes, which was surprising, because we kind of tailor our approach. Some videos we'll post here, but we won't post there, depending on because we got different audiences on different platforms. Like Facebook, those people know me. Like, especially on my personal profile, I've got probably, I don't know, I think it's around 5,000 or maybe 10,000 people. But a lot of those people truly know me. And so I'll make, content I'll post there is totally different than what I'll go post, say, like on YouTube. YouTube works great as well. One of the hidden gems that I know works extremely well is YouTube ads. And you can go and create a 15, 30-second video, advertise it on YouTube locally within a 20 or 30-mile radius. And one of the things that we do that works very well is I craft it in such a way to where you only pay if they watch longer than, I think it's either 3 seconds, maybe 3 or 5 seconds or something like that, whatever the term is. But if they don't watch, if they click skip, you don't pay. So one of the things that helped us out in the very beginning, and this has been like this for a while, you can run your ads and I create mine to where I want them to skip, because most people is not going to be building, right? So I will just put my name and my company name in the first 3 to 5 seconds. Hey, this is Ralpheal with SouthEastern General Contracting.com. If you're looking to build a custom home and you're in the Fayetteville area, blah, 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 blah. Well, they've already skipped. 1,000 people watched that, 995 people skip. But the person was like, wait a minute, yeah, I live in Fayetteville. Yeah, I'm looking to design and build a custom home, and they keep listening. There's a tracking phone number that they can call on their phone, and boom, and now we go in the call row, we see, wow, this lead came from this video that we advertised on YouTube. Wow, and we spent $500 in the ad spend, and it landed us a $500,000 custom home design build. You ain't got to do that but 1 or 2 times, and you're like, okay, let's dump some more money in on that. Facebook kind of works the same way too, where you can do the same thing, where you can advertise, and then we do it no matter which platform. We always follow that same kind of trajectory where we want to be able to track when they do actually engage. So TikTok, yeah, we're doing more with TikTok. YouTube for sure. Facebook, if I had to put them in order, Facebook, YouTube, and then TikTok. One
What
of the
about,
other things.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say
One of the
Instagram.
Instagram is automatically tied to Facebook. So anytime
Okay.
we're pushing something out to Facebook, it automatically goes to Instagram. So I don't get in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And one of the platforms that we haven't leveraged, but now they're changing and embracing content, is LinkedIn.
Mm.
And so on our government side and on our commercial side, this is something that we're going to put way more effort into testing with video content. And I think our strategy will be different for that audience. I think they tend to be more professional, more upright a little bit, not so relaxed, and can't maybe joke as much with some of our content and all that. But we're going to try it and do the same thing. The great thing that I found out about LinkedIn is you're targeting, like Facebook, you can target, crazy targeting, right? LinkedIn, you can too as well. One of the things that I've noticed on our government contracting side, we have our capability statement for those who know government contracting. You've got capability statement, which is like your company resume. And then we took it a step further. Again, we're a video centric company.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to figure out how I could differentiate myself in marketing, advertising to the government, right? I go to all these government seminars and things like that, and there's thousands, tens of thousands of people there. And in one of my first ones, I realized, my goodness, I realized what a challenge it was, because you've got a document that you're passing to the government contracting officer, right? And then you see they take your document and they place it in a stack with 500 more or 1,000 more. And from there, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We're 1 in 10,000. How in the world are we going to stand out and be memorable in this type of setting? And I didn't know that, LinkedIn at the time didn't have all these capabilities. So we created this here. And this came also when someone told me that it couldn't be done or that it was impossible. Remember, I told you before, that word I like is impossible. I see it as impossible. So after leaving that event, I'm like, this sucks. Like, we literally have no edge over anyone. And I'm like, videos always work for us. How can I get in front of these people with the video? Well, I can't, because I'm networking in person unless I just show them on my iPhone. So let's try that. Kind of worked, kind of didn't. So I saw this visually. I came up with this idea, and then I happened to actually see a wedding card that had a video on it. It was the first iteration of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, wait, that's it. Like, I can do the same thing for our company, right? That I can hand and I can give this and I can leave this with the government. And then the next problem arises. Wait a minute. Hold on. You can't just give government contracting officers, because this could be conceived as a gift. It has to be less than $20, I think's the number. So I had to go figure out how I can get this below $20, and how we were able to do that. We know how to design. We created the graphics ourselves, and we did all the heavy lifting. And then we found a manufacturer to create this. And what this does, we give this to contracting officers, and it's under 20. We get them for under $20, but it's a video that we leave in their hands.
Wow. Wow.
And so this one's probably dead. We didn't charge. It may need to be charged, but you see the screen here. And when you open it, we can customize whatever video goes in here. And normally what happens is it's a video customized specifically for the government. That says, hey, I'm Ralpheal with SouthEastern General Contractors. We're a Native American owned 8A hub zone company. We have between 10 and $20 million in bonding. Our next codes is blah, blah, blah. We've got excellent CPARS rating. We've got multiple service contracts out at Fort Bragg. And if you're looking for someone that you can sole source to, feel free to reach out to us, and feel free to pass this around to any other contracting officials that you know. And this has always been a showstopper.
Wow.
And got people to know who we are instantly, because nobody else did that. And we were the first to market with passing that around to government contracting officials. And so, again, video in different formats, different ways that we've just creatively figured out how to use that to sell and to tell the same story consistently over and over and over.
So good. Well, I really appreciate your time today. This has absolutely flown by. I know we're up against the clock here. Is there anything we're leaving out here that needs addressed?
Brandon, you see anything else we need to address? Saying our time's up. Not really. You got any other questions? What other questions would you have?
Time for one more. I did have one more. Yeah. If you need to go, we can end it here.
No, I've got time. I'm at your disposal.
My other question is, you mentioned earlier that you're not in the construction business, you're in the people business.
Right.
So you've seen good customers, bad customers, good subcontractors, bad subcontractors. What have you learned over 20 years to kind of sharpen your discernment as you're dealing with people, to keep the bad ones away and to be linked up and connected with the good ones? And what could you share with someone who's maybe in that first 5-10 years of their business, like, man, I keep getting linked up with the wrong subs, the wrong customers, and like, I have discernment like a butter knife. How do I get sharp discernment like a 20-year veteran like you?
Yeah. So when I started figuring out that I got to fix this, because you're right, man, I've lived through that season and it's not fun. What that looked like for me was having 6 or 7 custom home builds at a time with not the ideal types of clients. Had the money, but is that really your ideal client? Is it just anybody that's just got the means and the money to hire? Because that's, at one point in time, that's what I did, and I took on too many, and it was very tough to get past. What I did to try to overcome that was I had to get educated. I had to know who is my ideal client? Who isn't my ideal client? You got to put pen to paper and figure out what that looks like. And if you don't really know, all of us kind of know who our ideal clients are, who the people we like working with, why, what are their characteristics, and the people that we don't like working with, why, what are their characteristics. And there's a book that I had listened to. It's an audiobook. The name of it, I think, is Toxic Clients. And it was a book telling different stories about painters, about landscapers and stuff like that, and the experiences they went through. Similar kind of talk that we're having now. And it broke down how you can start to identify who is and who isn't, quote unquote, potentially a toxic client, or who is the ideal client. And after reading the books and after listening to the audiobooks and after going back and reviewing some of our past jobs and realizing, well, guess what? It's our fault. Where's our process? We don't even have it clearly identified who is our ideal clients. And it forced us to start changing our SOPs, our order of operations. And like now, we have a system that most of the industry, if you really learn the system we follow, other custom builders is going to be like, dude, there's no way we can do that. Like, you might can do that. I can't do that. I'm in a builder group with 20 other builders. So, I understand the builder's perspective. And so what does that look like? For me, I learned I got to have a system that produces ideal clients. And I got to be okay with not working with 10 clients and only working with maybe 2. But then there's the problem is, well, Ralph, then I'm not going to make any money. I can't cover payroll. And I was faced with that question at one point in time, was like, well, that sounds all good that you only want to work with ideal clients, but all of us don't have that luxury. We got to pay the bills. And this is what one of the other builders had mentioned to me. I'm like, well, I hear us complaining about the same things all the time. And either are we going to fix it, or are we just going to keep dealing with the same problems? Because for me, if I don't fix the problem, I'm not going to continue doing what I'm doing. So I made the decision. I was willing to roll the dice and say either way, I fix it or it don't work. But I'm not going to work with 10 clients that are not ideal for the sake of just making payroll or whatnot. I would rather only work with 2. And so what does our ideal clients look like? For us, when we're looking at custom home building, our ideal clients already have their land purchased and paid for 100% in full before they even find us. And when they do find us and they have their land paid in full, they're typically either going to pay cash and no loans, or they have at least 100 to 200K liquid that they're going to put towards their loan, because for us, the custom homes that they're going to build, number one, will not appraise for what the bank is going to say that they're worth, because oftentimes they're going to want to compare and do comps to either spec homes or semi-custom homes. So for our clients, they have to be able to pay the difference of what the shortfall is with appraisal. And a lot of people, that probably takes 90%, 80 to 90% of the people out of the market, because not many people has that ability to pay 100, 200 grand or more for the land, and then have another 100 to 200 grand or more to put towards their luxury home or their custom home. But they're out there. And out of every 10 to maybe 15 people we talk to, there's normally 1 or 2 in that group of people that is our ideal clients. And the thing I've found is that with those type of people, they're willing to pay higher prices for the results that they're after, which essentially means I don't have to do, 6 homes and make, say, $10,000 a piece or $20,000 a piece. I can maybe do 2 or 3 and make $200,000 a piece or $100,000 a piece or whatnot. And the clients, they perfectly understand and they know that, and it's a different type of client. So when you're going down this journey of trying to discern who's your ideal client and who's not your ideal client, you need to have those types of conversations and know that, yes, it's going to be a struggle and you're not going to have as many clients. But when it works, you're going to have least clients and make more money. And those least clients will be clients that it's a blessing all the way around, because you're helping them, they're helping you, everybody wins, and your quality of life increases tremendously. But it is a process that you got to go through and figure out.
So good. Well, I'm so grateful for all your insights today, Ralph. And Brandon, thanks for setting all this up. And Simone, I appreciate it. This has been full of knowledge and wisdom. We appreciate you taking time to share all this with us.
Thank you. And so I guess, Brandon, we're about ready to wrap this up. But before we do, there's always like one question whenever we're done with this. It's like, man, I would remember to ask that one question. Is there anything else that's lingering that we can knock out before we hop off?
Yeah, it would come to be with cash flow. How do you manage? Because you're at such a bigger scale than our landscaping industry. Projects are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30,000. You're talking $4 million, or these massive amounts. So how do you have the margin to keep everything running smoothly and sleep peacefully in the evenings?
So yeah, that's the struggle. How you learn that is, I think, the best way to learn it is, you got to kind of go through it the worst kind of way and figure it out, and face that beast that's like, okay, well, hey, listen, cash flow is a problem. How you going to make payroll? You didn't get the draw that you were supposed to be getting because whatever happened, and now you've got this overhead, this payroll, and we all live that, right, as entrepreneurs. And at the same time, it should force us to figure out how to fix that. For me, when I ran into that situation, it made me realize that I wasn't charging enough, number one, on what I was charging clients, and that I had to charge more. A lot of my problems come from the unknowns. When you're starting building a custom home, and before you even get the footing or the foundation in the ground, you're already $20,000 over your original budget, and you haven't even got started. Well, I faced that a few times, and I faced having clients to where we didn't have that conversation, and guess what? They didn't have the liquid funds to cover it. The banks wouldn't fund it. So guess who had to pay for that lesson, that cost of tuition? I did. And thankfully, one of the things that's helped me is staying lean as long and as much as you possibly can and putting everything back in the business. Even when you've got the money to go out and buy all this stuff, you shouldn't. You should keep the money, reinvest it back in the business. Focus on delivering the best service, finding creative ways to stand out. And a lot of times it's just the little things. In today's market, it's not hard. It's easier in today's market to stand out. Just show up 15 minutes earlier. If you do that alone, you're already ahead of everybody else. And answer your phone by the second time it rings. There's advantages of being small, and the advantage is you can outdo the big boys because they think they have the luxury of not doing the basics and being on point with that. And then with the cash flow, what I learned is I started on my business. I had to learn how to sell. I had to learn for whatever it is I needed to convey to my clients. I had to get them to the point to where they would say to themselves, you're right. That does make sense. When I'm telling them I have to have at least a 10% buffer onto whatever number that we're going to agree to. And here's the way I do it. If I'm negotiating with you, building your family their custom home, and say, hey, we're agreeing to, $850,000, we're agreeing to $1.2 million. And that's today's price, like today with the list of features that we want, right? But it's going to take us at least 8 to 10 to 12 months or possibly even more to build. And let me ask you something. Do you know what the rate of inflation is year over year?
5%.
Yeah. 5% every day of the week. So at 5%, if we're building $2 million and a year goes by and that increases 5%, what's that amount?
70,000.
70,000 or so, right? So now here's the thing. Who's going to take that loss if we don't account for it? And I'd stay quiet, just like I'm doing right now. Is I'm just straight like I'm doing. We'll have to have that conversation. Then I'll say, then it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable, and I'll say, hey, listen, I'm sorry that that this isn't kind of probably what you would like for it to be, but we need to have these types of conversations now, and I'm hoping you're seeing that I'm doing it in your best interest because we haven't signed a contract, and I want you to know all this stuff up front before you get committed, because a lot of builders, we'll close deals and we'll handle all this later, and then it becomes a problem. I want you to know the worst case scenario up front. So that 10% is $70,000. That needs to get added to the cost of what I'm proposing, because I'm not building for today, right? The price that we're agreeing to is as of today's price, but 6 months into the build, 8 months into the build, prices is steady going to go up. And I need to have the means to cover those increases by anticipating that 5% cost of increase just due to natural inflation. And we're not talking about the tariffs. We're not talking about anything that can happen from here to there. So in reality, to be successful and to plan for the worst case scenario, and not say that we're going to have the worst case, but at least plan for it, we need 10 to 15 to 20% above what we say we're comfortable for. Now, if 1.2 or 1.5 or whatever the number is, if that's a stretch, that's okay. This is where we get to get creative and be smart and solve the problem before we even start. Because my designer is in-house. I know how to design. He's been with me since I got started. Guess what? $70,000 is what we just used, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're wanting to design a 5,000 square foot home. Maybe you're like a lot of our other clients. When they get in and 5 years down the road, you realize they didn't need that much square footage. And I have a lot of clients tell me that. Well, you know what? I could have lived with a 4,000 square foot house. Let me do some math for you real quick. And then I'll just pull out the calculator. I'll say $1,000, 1,000 square feet times, say, $350 per square feet. Boom. And I say, that's that dollar amount. Now, if we can go with a 4,000 square foot home and make that work, this is how much money you would be saving. And we can include these contingencies or these budgets. And so that way, when we run into that, or if we run into that, it's not a problem because we have already planned for it well in advance. And the idea here is to talk about this up front. So when we're building, no matter what happens, we can go through it without any of the hiccups where people start and have to stop midways because they didn't fully count the cost. And I hope that you see the value in what I'm doing here because, even if you hire me or not, um, you're going to leave here with a much better understanding of what it really takes to be successful at doing this. And if our numbers are too high, which sometimes they are, at least you can go to another builder who maybe is willing to build at a cheaper price. But now you can see if they're willing to incorporate the things that we've just mentioned. That's the way we handle, that. And then the cash flow is if they go forward with us, I'll let them know that on certain draws, which is and this is totally against industry norms. And I let them know that I say, what I'm about to say, it's not the industry norm. I know the reputation that we have in the construction industry. However, there's always exceptions to the rules. We've got 20 some years in business. Go check out our reviews. You can go talk to clients who did exactly what you're about to do and paying cash up front or paying on front loading some of the draws, whatever that is. But to handle that cash flow issue, if you're getting draws, I let clients know that I structure my draws to where I don't have a cash flow issue because that's the number one problem that contractors have. But our goal is not to have that. And how we don't have that is by ensuring that we're not putting all of our draws at the back end of a stage while we've already fronted the cost and then waiting another 10, 20, 30 days to collect. And that gets us in that perpetual cycle of not being able to catch up. I let my clients know that. And I say, for me to overcome that, I have to structure at least half of my draws to where they're tied to the beginning of a stage and not the end of a stage.
Yeah, that's good. And you're in North Carolina. I'm down here in Florida. I know we have some listeners that are in California and there's all kind of crazy laws out there, but in North Carolina, that's good.
Yeah. So let's put that disclaimer out there. This is what I do. Don't mean that everybody should do it, but I'm completely transparent with our clients. And, when they go into it, they're fully bought into what we're doing, how we're doing it. And, we've did deals where it's been 100% cash basis, no banks involved. Sometimes there's banks, sometimes there's draws, sometimes there's escrows. Every deal is different. That's the beautiful thing about, when you're doing custom and you can directly deal with owners, there's no one deal that's ever the same.
That's good. Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your expertise and your time and your inspiring story of how far you've come from that older gentleman that told you get out of here and you launched your business in 2004 to be here today. It's an inspiring story. Is there any closing remarks you want to share with a young entrepreneur who's more towards your 2004 stage?
I would just say it's going to take you a long time. It's going to be hard, and just choose your heart. No matter what you're going to do, it's going to be tough. Just don't expect immediate results. You're going to have to spend your time doing something, even if it's working a normal job. So why not go for your dreams? Find out what your baseline is. Everybody has to make a certain amount of money to live and pay their bills. Find out what that is. Figure out a way to cover that, and then go for it. And when you go for it, give it everything you got. There's a thing that's called work-life balance. That's something that I think we all struggle with too. And I still struggle with it. I think anybody who's a really hardcore driven entrepreneur, I tell people, a lot of people think that, well, man, you may work too much. You're going to hear that from your family, from your friends. Just know that if you're wired like that, it's not for them. They don't see things, you know what I mean? And it's okay not to be normal, but also too, surround yourself with the right team and make sure you love what you're doing. And one thing that I'll leave with, I have had to come to this understanding, you know, um, we work 6 days. We're supposed to rest one. And sometimes I've tried for many years, I'd work and I'd brute force 7 days a week, almost 18 to 20 hours a day, and couldn't make no headway and was just running up against brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. We need that day of rest and clarity, and seek wisdom, seek mentors, find people who's already done what you're trying to do and go work for them and put yourself in a position where you can work for them for free. And that's a tough order. But I found out, and I've talked to enough people to where when you go talk to really successful people and you ask their story, somewhere along their journey, it's that they're willing to go do the work, help someone out, work for less money, or even work for free, as long as it keeps them moving down the path of success.
Well said. I need to work on that. I've gotten in the habit of the 7 days. I know it's wrong, so I've been trying to take that day of rest. So that's very timely word for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I struggle with it, you know, because and work is worship for me. A lot of people don't understand that, and my wife's in the business with me. My daughter's in the business. My nephew's in the business. People that Troy's in the business that 20 some years, and even with them, they don't get it. You know, they don't see it like this is a. Most days, this is not work for me, especially now in the season that I'm in. I've visualized these days. You know, only time it's work is when things isn't working. When it's working, it's passion, it's joy. And
Mhm.
so how can we count that as work? You know? So I mean, it is work for me at this point, doing like what I'm doing now, reaching out and sharing and helping inspire, hopefully, and motivate other people to go out and do what it is that God's put in their heart to do. And if you already see the end result before you even get started, that's all the proof you need. Because if you can't see it, uh, there's a hard chance that it's going to happen if you can't see it. But if you can see it clearly, then that's proof that it's already done. You just have to be willing to do the work throughout the process to get to it.
So good. Well, I really appreciate your time and all these insights and motivation. Is there anything else burning on your heart you want to share?
No, I think we should stay connected and do this again. And there is some other stuff that we're going to be doing that we got in the works with trainings and people that want to learn the build process, the order of operations, the costly lessons learned. And man, if we learn, listen, I've probably got $20 million in losses over the years that I've probably, if I really sat down and counted the cost of mistakes and missed opportunities and not knowing, find somebody who's already did that and learn from them. People say that the best way to learn is from experience. I used to say that. I don't believe that anymore. I believe the best way to learn is to learn from other people's experience.
I agree.
Find them and go learn from their lessons, and that way you can kind of save yourself a whole lot of heartache, because any one of those lessons can take you out depending on what kind of business you're in. So surround yourself with people who are already doing what you're trying to do, and model, mimic, put your own spin on it. Don't try to recreate the wheel all the time. That's one of my blessings and curse. And sometimes when I do get stuck, that's the reason why, is I want to get too creative and just want to recreate something that's already been created and get stuck. So
Cool. Well, I really
awesome.
appreciate
Mhm.
your time, Brandon. Thank you for all. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you for
Yeah.
getting all this set up. And
He's saying, thank you, Brandon, for helping us.
Oh yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
Been a
Cool.
pleasure.
All right.
cool.
Cool. Thank you. And you guys will send us a link to the video
Yes,
once it's
I'm going to
edited.
send it to the audio. I have an audio engineer, so the audio will come out on Spotify and Apple this week, and I'll email you the link, and then the video will take longer.
Mhm.
That might be out in a week, 2-3 weeks. We kind of got backed up on the video, but when it does come out, I'll send you the link, and then we'll have some shorts from the highlight clips of what you said that will be for like Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels,
Mhm.
and you're more than welcome to use those however you'd like. So, and we'll
Okay. And
post.
how did you one question I did have while you was talking, how did we get to know one another, Brandon? Do you know?
Through call Ralpheal.
Callrell?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I asked Callrail who, if they had anybody with a good story or anyone in the trades that they recommend being on our podcast, and they're like, oh yeah, we have
Mhm.
folks from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you. Nice meeting
All
you.
right.
Bye.
See ya.